If Max Verstappen is on the market, you wouldn't be doing your job properly if you weren't at least trying to have the conversation. An uphill battle for that, as in Max Verstappen has a clause in his contract that would allow him to leave if he were lower than third in the drivers' standing.
Max Verstappen just triggered the most ruthless clause in modern F1, and Red Bull never saw it coming. While they were busy celebrating wins, Max had already written his exit plan, signed, sealed, and timed to perfection.
But if Russell was to be ahead of him, then that would have been enough.
This wasn't a panic move, it was precision from day one. Now that the contract details are out, who's really in control? Max or the team that thought they owned him?
Max Verstappen's contract clause that supposedly allows him to walk away from Red Bull Racing.
We all know Verstappen is always serious about what he wants. He doesn't bluff, he doesn't stall, and he definitely doesn't stick around out of loyalty. If Max wants out, he's out. No drama, no long goodbye. Just a clean, quiet exit. Preferably while Red Bull's still trying to figure out what hit them.
He believed there was a big rumor a couple of weeks ago that if Max was outside of the top 3 in the championship by the summer break, he would be able to walk away.
And guess what? That exact scenario might be just around the corner. Because the man has a clause in his contract that basically says, if I'm third or worse by summer, I'm gone. Red Bull could literally be the second best team on the grid, and it still wouldn't be good enough to keep him.
Apparently is even more concerning for Red Bull than they might have expected. This puts George Russell on serious alert, with Toto Wolff certainly not.
And here's where it gets messy. This isn't just paddock gossip anymore.
But if Russell was to be ahead of him, then that would have been enough. But after the last couple of Grand Prix,
the clause is real, it's active, and Verstappen's sitting exactly where he shouldn't be, with George Russell breathing down his neck and McLaren starting to act like they've had 3 espresso shots too many. One more upgrade from Woking and boom, Max could find himself in 3rd place. And just like that, Red Bull loses its golden boy without a single euro in return. Free transfer.
Been big rumors now for a very long time about where Max potentially sees his future. This time last year, this is the 4th of March actually, 2024, we were talking about Max potentially leaving Red Bull. Not because of the car performance, because that seemed implausible, although the car, of course.
Now, the funniest part? His contract runs until 2028. On paper, that sounds like long-term commitment. In reality, it's more like, we'll stay together unless I find someone better by July. Which is brutal, but also very, very Verstappen.
A clause in his contract that would allow him to leave if he were lower than 3rd in the drivers' standings. This could be activated.
And Christian Horner knows it. This clause has officially turned the 2025 season into a countdown clock, and Red Bull can't afford to blink.
Thereafter did actually fall away from Miami onwards, but this was around the Horner drama, right? So the Horner stuff, the Newey stuff, everything that was happening back.
And if you think Toto wouldn't be tempted to do that, you clearly haven't watched Mercedes' PR team work their magic. Still, Toto's not a fool. He knows Verstappen comes with baggage.
In the summer. So we talked about this at the time, that there was a big rumor floating around that if Max was 4th or worse in the championship, then he would be able to say to Red Bull, hey, I want to activate this clause and leave the contract. Doesn't mean that he has to, or doesn't mean that he necessarily would.
Jos Verstappen isn't exactly the silent dad in the corner, and who knows what other advisors come attached to Max's name. But when the trade-off is getting the most dominant driver in modern F1, yeah, you deal with the circus. Even if it means sitting through Jos' awkward paddock rants and watching Helmut Marko accidentally leak half your strategy.
It's actually even weaker for Red Bull in a bargaining position perspective, because their sources tell them that, and their best placed sources, that it's actually outside of only the top 2. So instead of having to be 4th or lower,
Red Bull's 2026 engine program is turning into the kind of silent disaster no one at Milton Keynes wants to talk about. But everyone in the paddock can smell from a mile away. The new power unit, being developed in collaboration with Ford, was supposed to be a bold step into the future. Instead, it's shaping up like a midfield engine project disguised as a top-tier plan. According to multiple paddock insiders and technical leaks reported by the Race and Motorsport Total in early April 2025, Red Bull's internal performance targets aren't just slipping, they're crumbling.
Maybe it's even plausible depending on your perspective with the upgrades that Mercedes may bring, but it's certainly not likely, I wouldn't say, right now.
This isn't one of those development hiccups every team has in preseason. This is structural. One source even described Red Bull's dyno results as way off compared to Mercedes and Ferrari benchmarks. And when people inside the team start referring to targets as aspirational instead of achievable, you know the whole project is on fire and everyone's just pretending not to notice. If this was any other team, it'd be a mild concern. But for a squad that's used to domination and perfection, this level of underperformance is a full-blown existential crisis.
Indeed, because if McLaren continue at their current pace, there is absolutely a world where Max goes into the summer break outside of the top two in the championship, at which point he would be able to tell the team, supposedly completely for free, that it's time for him to go.
Now here comes the part that really shows just how bad things are behind the scenes. In March 2025, by 20 Red Bull, alongside Ferrari, launched a coordinated push to get rid of the new hybrid rulebook altogether. Not tweak it, scrap it. They wanted to roll back to a more classic engine formula, something like the old V10s, or naturally aspirated units. No 50-50 combustion to battery split, no high voltage stress testing, just good old internal combustion mayhem. The reason? Simple. Because their hybrid unit sucks, and they know it.
Mercedes probably feel like they're kind of still in it, but I think they'll have to realize after Saudi Arabia that they can't just get by with the way things currently are. If they're not going to bring upgrades to this car, they're not going to have any chance in either of the championships.
But Mercedes wasn't having any of it. Toto Wolff reportedly shut the whole idea down in a meeting just weeks before the Saudi Arabian GP. He called the proposal a joke, according to Auto, Motor and Sport. Not just because he enjoys the current hybrid format, but because he knows Mercedes is ahead. Why give up your lead just because someone else is drowning?
But the pace wasn't really there, because I was expecting at the start of the Grand Prix that Max and Oscar would do exactly what they did. Of course, the turn one incident aside, we're not going to get into that.
This wasn't just a tech disagreement, it was a political massacre. Red Bull and Ferrari tried to flip the table. Mercedes bolted it to the floor. And in the end, FIA sided with Mercedes, leaving Red Bull with a half-developed PU and zero leverage. They didn't just lose the performance battle, they lost the political war too, and that hurts more in Formula One than losing a quali session.
Ferrari secured their first podium in a regular race of the season in the hands of Charles Leclerc, and he urges Ferrari to say, look, don't give up on this season yet until it's absolutely impossible, but you gotta think that for Leclerc...
Now let's talk about Ferrari. The Italian camp is suspiciously quiet. While Red Bull is out here leaking stress like a broken radiator, Ferrari is operating like the world's most elegant black hole. No leaks, no panic, just vague confidence and minimal complaints. That silence? It's not apathy, it's calculated.
27 years of age, they didn't have many, if any, titles, right? So that puts Leclerc in a position where maybe the best is still yet to come.
Enrico Gualtieri, Ferrari's technical director, gave a bizarrely calm interview to Sky Italia earlier this month. He didn't deny performance concerns, but he also didn't address them. Instead, he repeated some very Ferrari-coded language. We are where we need to be at this stage, which sounds like someone who's either in control or about to get fired. But then came the bomb from Marco Mattiacci, who publicly said Hamilton is desperate to find his eighth, and is banking entirely on Ferrari's 2026 car delivering it.
We know that Hamilton's been struggling in general in the ground effect era. No real surprise maybe that it's continuing to some degree at Ferrari so far. Of course, he's going to be expecting that he can turn it around, but I think...
And that's where the weird tension kicks in. Lewis Hamilton, the man who's been in engine heaven for a decade, doesn't leave Mercedes unless he knows something. He isn't gambling on vibes, he's gambling on raw data. Ferrari clearly hasn't shared with the world yet. And when someone like Hamilton makes that move, it forces you to ask, what the hell do they know that we don't?
Hamilton seems desperate. I think he's waiting for the 2026 car, hoping Ferrari hits the jackpot and gives him a car that he can actually handle, which is probably about right. I mean, look, if Hamilton turns up in 2026 and the car is terrible, I think he probably will just call it a day.
And I bet you don't know the 2026 Madrid Grand Prix is supposed to be a grand debut. What it actually looks like is a student project with a billion-dollar PR budget and zero adult supervision. This isn't just another street circuit with tight corners and bad overtaking. No, this is a full-blown logistical disaster, already 2 years ahead of schedule.
And with so many questions about next year, they don't have the measurements of the track, the layouts, they have no idea beyond the pictures published by the media or the position of the garages. Where are they going to put the trucks? What's hospitality?
As of April 2025, there are no official layout scans shared with the teams. No downforce simulations, no suspension models. Just some shiny renders, a few awkward press statements, and a sim lap that looked like it was filmed on a Nintendo Wii.
The FIA, and then the FIA pressures the circuit to speed things up. But yeah, there is a serious concern about this Madrid track, and that is probably saying the very least.
Let's talk about that lap. The grand reveal was supposed to impress stakeholders and show off Madrid's potential. Instead, what they got looked like someone's first Blender project gone rogue. The corners were jerky, the apexes made no sense, and the virtual driver, if there even was one, nearly binned it mid-lap. F1 TV didn't even bother reposting it. According to engineers at Alpine and Haas, the sim footage was undrivable, and worrying if this is the best version they had. If that was their highlight reel, we're all in trouble. Behind the scenes, things are worse. Teams are complaining, not publicly of course, because you don't shout at the FIA without getting politically exiled. But the whispers are getting louder. Multiple teams told racefans.net that they have zero usable data on Madrid. Not even basic stuff like garage placement or power outlet locations, let alone tire degradation models or aerodynamic behavior.
FIA, the teams pressure the FIA, and then the FIA pressures the circuit to speed things up. But yeah, there is a serious concern about this Madrid track, and that is probably saying the very least.
One team principal, off the record, said, "It's like preparing for a moon landing with Google Maps and a coin toss. The only people who seem to be pretending everything's fine are the FIA themselves, who are reportedly pressuring the circuit to speed up plans in private," according to a leaked internal memo quoted by Motorsport magazine in March 2025.
Because I was expecting at the start of the Grand Prix that Max and Oscar would do exactly what they did. Of course, the turn one incident aside, we're not going to get into that. Again, I expected Max and Piastri to kind of be in that position where Piastri would consider, okay, do I attack here? Do I just drop back outside of the dirt?
But let's not act like Madrid is an isolated circus. It's part of a bigger pattern that's turning the entire F1 calendar into a Vegas-inspired nightmare with carbon fiber. Zandvoort is gone. Yes, gone. One of the few tracks with actual soul, crowd energy, and a layout drivers loved? Axed. Imola might be next, because apparently historic relevance doesn't look good on Instagram Reels. And Spa? It's on alternate year life support, like some ancient pet everyone's emotionally attached to, but won't pay vet bills for anymore.
Signed a 3-year extension there, so we'll see about that. Vegas ain't going anywhere. Baku probably isn't going anywhere. Kota certainly shouldn't be. Barcelona, unfortunately, you know this, I've got a real big soft spot for that circuit. I think it's way...
All of this is happening while Vegas, Miami, and Jeddah stay untouched. And don't even pretend you don't know why. It's not about racing. It's about flashing lights, luxury suites, and which city can promise Liberty Media more influencer engagement. These venues aren't surviving on racing merit. They're surviving on financial steroids. Meanwhile, Barcelona, a circuit that actually functions as a testing benchmark for cars, is on the chopping block, because Madrid wants to host a street race next to a storage unit.
Zandvoort is going. They've confirmed that's not coming back. Singapore, I don't think that's going anywhere. Suzuka should never go anywhere. Jeddah has until 2030. We'll see how the development in Qiddiya, of course, gets on. The other city, the brand new city they're building out in Saudi Arabia.
Now, here's where it gets even more suspicious. Look at which venues are staying. Mercedes-aligned strongholds, like Silverstone, Kota, and even Suzuka, are safe and sound. Why? Because Mercedes, as always, knows how to play the political game like it's a royal chess match. Red Bull's flailing, Ferrari's quiet, Mercedes? They're locking down track deals with subtle power plays and letting everyone else self-destruct. If you think it's a coincidence that the most stable venues are the ones where Mercedes dominates, you probably still believe the Madrid circuit will be race-ready.
2014, and well, that of course turned out to be rather accurate.
But internally, Mercedes knows this isn't a one-track issue. Engineers close to the team told Amos that cooling strategy, floor stiffness, and ride height calibration all need urgent attention. If those upgrades don't hit before mid-season, Mercedes could be watching the title fight on TV by August. The only reason they're still in the conversation? McLaren. That's it. Because McLaren has sneakily become the dark horse of the grid, and everyone else is too busy being dramatic to notice. Now loop all that back to the man holding the detonator, Max Verstappen. If Red Bull can't deliver performance, if Madrid becomes a crash fest, and if McLaren keeps climbing, that exit clause starts glowing red. And when it does, Verstappen won't hesitate. Now tell me, what do you think? Has Red Bull already lost Max, or is the real chaos still coming? Let me know in the comments below.